Hey guys, it's Josh. Today I want to talk to you about if you should back Massive Darkness, Dungeons of Shadowreach. I owned all of Massive Darkness 2, and I have some thoughts and opinions on this newest iteration, as well as some recommendations on what's the best value for your money and for your shelf space and your time. So let's get into it. So first, I just want to talk about my experience. I've played Massive Darkness 2 extensively. We went through the entire Heavenfall campaign with 4 players, and I eventually ended up getting rid of Massive Darkness because of the lack of difficulty. It was like pretty easy. The work required to get it to the table just like didn't match the gameplay experience that I wanted and the shelf space required. Since I had all of the content, it was a bunch of boxes. What I want to cover in this video is what makes Massive Darkness 2 great, like why are people raving about it, what issues did it have, what's new in this newest campaign, and then what you should pledge for if you would like to, or should you skip it. So I'm not going to cover the tabletop RPG stuff. I think it's cool that it's there. I just don't really engage with that part of the hobby. So first off, what was good about Massive Darkness 2 and why are they releasing a new iteration? The first portion is that you go from 0 to hero in one gameplay session. So you start off level 1 and by the end of it, there's tons of loot that you're getting. You get to choose different leveling paths as there's like different ability cards. So your gameplay is it's different from each time you play as well. Each class, of course, I feel like this is the main selling point. Each class has its own little mini game that you're playing that makes them wildly different. Like at the end of the day, you're rolling the same sort of dice and stuff, but there's this other little mechanic that you're engaging with that just adds that little variability and uniqueness to every gameplay. And then also, as I kind of alluded to, the fast-paced combat, you roll all the dice all at once, and you get to roll like 10 dice. You roll both the attacking and the defending dice in one handful. So basically combats resolve very quickly and you get to use all your rerolls and skills and all that stuff in one like dice pool. Okay, so something that's not strong about Massive Darkness though is because it's that 0 to hero experience and I feel it was developed that way first, it's really not a great campaign dungeon crawler. The campaign felt very like tacked on and stitched together. And I wouldn't say that campaign modes are really CMON's strong suit. They just haven't really nailed it yet for me, especially in this game and something that wasn't designed to be campaign first. So they're kind of retroactively making a campaign work, but I feel like it just didn't really bring it together. You're playing the base game missions. It's the same ones in the core game. It's been a while, so I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's the same missions. You just choose a way through them. So that wasn't very good. It also means like the story's really non-existent. There's nothing to kind of tie things together. It's just the scenario intro and the loot you get because they don't want you just getting all of the best gear right off the rip. It was more drip fed. You like picked up loot tokens that you could then exchange in between gameplay sessions for more loot and stuff. I just remember you got less loot in general. I still think Massive Darkness is really best as a one-shot mode, and there are so many good campaign dungeon crawlers out there. I have 2 recommendations here that I've played and can vouch for. I think both these games are absolutely amazing, and they were designed as campaign first. It's Tidal Blades 2, Rise of the Enfolders, Tales from the Red Dragon Inn as well. Both are great. They really respect your time. They have unique mechanics, great user experience, and fun leveling and all that sort of stuff. And I just don't think that this is Massive Darkness's strength. And so I personally wouldn't be looking at it if you're interested in that campaign experience. This is a bring it out one night, go from 0 to hero, have fun, roll dice kind of experience. Yeah, so I kind of touched on these. This is the issues that I had in Massive Darkness. It's a lot of setup and teardown. The organizer in the box is not very great. It's just like typical CMON stuff where all the minis are in plastic and there's not you almost need a 3D printed insert or some insert to have any hope of getting this game to the table frequently. And so for me, you can see too much content made it hard to play. More was not better. I had 3 boxes of 3D printed stuff and Plano boxes, all the different minis for the monsters. I had them all labeled so it was easier to find it, and it still made it like frustrating. You have to have a separate table almost to like have all that stuff out so you can go find the mob easily and bring it back to the game table to set them up, and then you put them away 2 seconds later because the enemies rarely kind of mattered. They were mostly just health pools because they die so quickly. We never really saw their unique abilities come into play. most of the time. And it also meant that like defense focused builds weren't really viable because we never got that far. You just wiped the floor with them and moved on before the defense phase. Like maybe only against bosses and roaming monsters you would have those defense skills actually trigger or feel useful. The final thing is I personally don't believe it scales very well at player counts. I think 3 to 4 is kind of the sweet spot. This is sort of usually the case for most dungeon crawlers in my experience, but it's especially here. My girlfriend and I have played 2 players before, and it felt like we could just, I don't know, it just like wasn't spawning enough monsters for us to have an engaging experience. We kind of just ran past them, and it was, a lot of these missions are doing a specific objective, go to here, deliver this thing over here. They're pretty simplistic. So you kind of navigate around the monsters, or you just kill them and there's no monsters on the board. You really need to house rule it in order to have those lower player counts work, or multi-hand and play multiple characters, which I'm not personally a huge fan of. I like to manage my one character, especially with these different unique mini games. Like in something like Zombicide, it's pretty easy to multi-hand because the characters aren't that complex. But in this case, there's maybe just a little too much going on. And then for 5 and 6, like you can do it. I probably would never do 6 player. I think it's just too much, but it is there. We did 5 players once, and it was a long night. And the 5th player actually ended up leaving, and we had to finish with 4 players the next day. So it didn't work out for us. We still had fun during it, but we weren't able to finish a mission in a evening. So my experience wasn't that unique, and Simon obviously heard from many sources that the difficulty was not what all players were hoping for. And so they've created these new difficulty modifiers that you can include in this newest iteration that are backwards compatible and allow you to sort of pull a few levers to up the difficulty and find the sweet spot for you. I have hopes that this is going to fix some of my concerns. Potentially, it'll fix the player scaling or just make it more worthwhile to get to the table, since there'll be hopefully more of a tactical angle versus just a, easy breezy dungeon crawl experience, dice chucking. Yeah, so the new options are there are harder doors. That's one thing. When you open a door, there's always a door card and then usually a spawn. And those door cards sometimes had good things, sometimes had neutral things, and they have some new ones that are just all bad, all more difficult. So those are easy to mix in. There's a new darkness track, which I feel is hopefully the most promising to me. I don't really know actually every level in there, but it's theoretically spawning more monsters or more difficult monsters, and should be, just an easy way to up the difficulty. The door cards you might not even see, of course. They're just sort of randomly put in there, but this is like a consistent way to up the difficulty. The other like consistent way is this enhanced monsters challenge, which they're these little cards here at the top that basically they're just like a passive effect that you have to sort of remember. It's just like a difficulty modifier. Like you can kind of see one about a mob leader. They roll maybe an extra dice, and if this happens, then something. I don't exactly know what all these are, but it's something that you'll just have to keep in mind while playing. And so that kind of dovetails into what my thoughts are with these, which is I'm not like a huge fan of these like sandboxy ways to increase difficulty. I'm more of a fan of like predefined difficulty levels that I would hope are more like play tested, refined, that sort of stuff, versus like here are a bunch of ways for you to tweak it and find your own balance. I don't know. Maybe I'm just more reliant on game designers. I like to play them the way they intended, I suppose, versus getting into this. It feels like house rule territory. And although these were, levers handed out to us by the developers, I don't know. I get why they had to do it. That's this very first part of this slide, which is they wanted it to be backwards compatible and also leave that easy breezy difficulty for, families or for people who just don't want to have to worry about spending, 2 hours on a game and losing at the end. Like I know some people are very sensitive to that. I play a lot of Cthulhu games, so that doesn't bother me necessarily, and I want difficulty, but maybe I'm not the exact audience. There are a lot of challenging dungeon crawlers out there. So I get why that exists. I understand why these are the way that they are. I think, hopefully a handful of these are actually useful. I guess at this point, like there's not really any content out there of that I've found of someone playing with these challenges. So it's hard to know how they're going to affect them and I guess how well it ups the difficulty in general. So yeah, like I said, the Nightmare Challenge track seems the most promising. And and I guess the one thing I didn't touch on was this horror challenge, which is a part of this Wicked Hamlet expansion where you accumulate horror, and once you get to 3, then something horrible happens to you, and you have to spend actions. Basically, it penalizes your actions to get rid of them, and then you get a new horror challenge. So there's that. And for me, like in the original Massive Darkness 2, I guess not the original, but Massive Darkness 2, I never used those challenges outside of the content they were with. There was the like auras in that Care Bear one. The dragon had some difficulty modifiers. Like for me, that again, it's probably the purest. Like I want to play the game as the designers intended. Like I feel like that's all kind of one thing that should be contained, and I don't really want to take a portion of that out and play it over here, you know? So that's the way that I am with most games. And it's the same for like Marvel United, if you've played that one, where they have all these little modifier challenges, that sort of stuff. I don't really take those outside of the expansion that they came in. So that doesn't interest me. Maybe it does interest you. So I don't believe you should go all in on this one if you are interested. And there's a few reasons why. The base game has tons of variety, and it's going to come with those stretch goals that add a ton more monsters and different heroes. And the base game has the most scenarios, I suppose, in it as well. So extra enemies and tiles and all this stuff, it just slows down you setting things up. It's more shelf space that you're going to have to dedicate to this game. And I felt, after owning all of the previous boxes, I just felt like it was too much. It just made it more difficult to get to the table to decide on it. It just felt like more of a hassle in general, having to, as I touched on, like go find a specific miniature in a horde of different minis. It just wasn't worth it. It's not what I wanted from this game. I wanted it to just be a setup, a quick setup, have a good time, throw some dice, play something new every time from the class perspective, especially because the enemies I felt like didn't really matter to me too much in that original game. Maybe that's going to be more so the case here, but I still kind of doubt it. I feel the mixing up the classes and playing something new there, that's where you're going to get most of the variability. A lot of the missions it's pretty similar. Like if you played a lot of CMON games, I mentioned before, a lot of them are just like pick up and deliver missions or kill this thing specifically, or they're all sort of riffs and variations on that. So even though you don't, all the different quests they're nice, and there's definitely variety there. They are shades of each other, and I felt like the most variety you get is by playing an entirely new class. You're going to still get a ton of mobs and roaming monsters and that sort of stuff if you back this campaign with the stretch goals. And for me, I feel that's going to be enough versus all these other boxes that are just more enemies, really, and some new mechanics, a boss, that sort of stuff. I honestly didn't play the boss missions all that much either. Like I said, I felt like what I wanted from this game was 0 to hero, level up your guy, have a good time, mix it up, play something different. So I didn't pull those out because it felt like more of a special occasion. I don't think you would pull them out more often anyways. Like the most replayable stuff I feel is probably in the base game, and these other expansions you'll maybe play once, twice. Like that was my experience at least. So the other thing is that only that one is crowdfunding exclusive. So you can pick these up at retail if you decide I need more Massive Darkness 2 specifically. And the last bullet point, can't see it on the slide though, but at the very top of this all in, there's a little message that says save $10. And I think that's pretty funny. It just feels like it's not really, you're not saving a bunch here. I think you'd be better served just waiting and buying a lot of this stuff at retail or used or whatever from others who are going to sell it off. That's just my opinion. So what should you pledge for if you are interested? For me, and what I'm doing is I'm ready to get back into Massive Darkness again, but this time I'm going to do it a little more conservatively. But now that I have more clarity of what the game is and what I want from it. So for me, this is exactly what I'm doing. It's this best value thing that I've highlighted here, which is the core game, and then this character add-on crowdfunding exclusive expansion thing. This is actually a really good value, that character add-on, because it contains 5 of the expansion classes, which to me, like I said, that's where the variety comes. And getting 5 of them, it's $40. I think I looked at one of the expansions earlier, like Bards and something, Tinkerer. and it was 35 just for those two, and it comes with a roaming monster. But again, roaming monster, you're going to have plenty of them, I feel. So yeah, 40 for all of them is great. And also the druid is in there, which is, it was crowdfunding exclusive anyways. So I feel like this is a really good value. The druid was who I played through the campaign as well, and I had a good time. It's fun to shapeshift and just to be a raccoon in general. So I really like that. And then of course with the core game, you're getting all the stretch goals, which, this is 2 big CMON boxes and then this other tiny box, which you definitely can throw all of the stuff in that character add-on box into one of the 2 boxes in some way, as long as you don't mind the minis being, I don't know, somewhere not in some sort of blister pack thing. But yeah, you're likely going to need or want some sort of third-party organizer anyways. You should be able to contain this all in those 2 boxes, and then, if that fits comfortably within a Calyx shelf with room to spare. So that lets you have a cube of Massive Darkness and a manageable amount of content to pull out when you want to play it. So I personally think you should skip the Darkbringer box, which was the stretch goals from that first campaign. It's just more mobs and roaming monsters, mostly. You do get some alternate heroes and hero sculpts, but of course, if you don't own Massive Darkness 2, some of those won't apply to you. And the other thing is that the heroes are so very easy to proxy, and you might even be happier that way because it's 1 fewer mini to store. So you can just find what their, little unique ability is. All those cards, I'm sure, are somewhere online. And that's what I would recommend doing. Just doing that. Like, I know it's not as cool as actually having the card, but I think if you get to that point in, like, you're running out of variety that much, so you need new stuff, I don't think you'll mind having to do the card, to be honest. So I don't think you should get that. I think it's probably the thing I would get the least from a content perspective. So I've been pretty critical of the campaign mode as well. I don't really think it's worth the time investment. So I would skip Underspire altogether. In Underspire, you have levels 6 through 10 of all the monsters and stuff available to you since you go past that level 5 level cap. And some people do start an adventure at level 5 and just do a one-shot, level 6, I guess, and start a one-shot there and then just go to 10 for some variety. So like that's the only thing I would maybe consider it for. But for me, those levels were even less balanced. Like we were just so overpowered by the time we got that far. Like it just kind of exacerbated the issues that I had with the game. And so I personally wouldn't do that. I think it's cool because you get some super overpowered stuff, which is sort of fun, but it loses its luster for me pretty quickly. So I would avoid this for now, especially because, again, you can always pick this stuff up at retail. There's no savings for backing it now, from what I can tell. Heavenfall is still $40, and that's what you're paying here for Underspire. Heavenfall was the previous Massive Darkness 2 campaign. I just don't think it's worth the time investment or the money in this case just for that campaign, because you're mostly paying for the campaign mode. There's like a couple new enemies in there, but that's it. And then the other expansions is just going to slow down and it's just going to bog you down with too much content, in my opinion. So I would skip all of those for now. If you're really super worried, you could get Sunken Temple just because that's the only exclusive one. And then, you can find the other ones at retail if you need them, but I really feel you won't. So if you do want more, I actually think that Massive Darkness 2, the core box, is the best place to go because it's going to give you tons of new missions and those 6 new classes. There's actually some really fun classes in that base game. The Ranger is like a crowd favorite. This is one where you're sort of doing a push your luck game. The Rogue was super fun. So there's some good ones in there, and there's tons of new missions and new tiles and stuff. And it's also like its own contained core game. So that's kind of nice because you might play through those with those classes. But again, my opinions were that it was very easy. I don't know if that new difficulty modifier is going to alleviate that. My final thoughts. So I think you should back this game if you are a fan of one-shot dungeon crawlers and you go into it knowing that it's supposed to be a, I guess, easier experience, more accessible in terms of gameplay, but just don't go too far and so that it becomes inaccessible in terms of getting it to the table. That's my opinion. I think it's best at 3 or 4 players. 5 if people are super like down for a long night. I feel like there may be better games, but there's not a lot of 5-player dungeon crawler-esque games out there. So this one does kind of fit that or fill that hole. I think you should skip this if you're looking for a strong campaign experience or for something with a lot of deep tactical combat, like Too Many Bones, for example, or Elder Scrolls, or so many other games. This one just doesn't fulfill that. I think that you're just probably better served staying away unless you want this sort of lighter experience. It is very fun, but it just doesn't fulfill the like tactical part of my brain as much as I like some of these other games for. And I don't think that it's very good at solo or 2 players. If you're going to solo it, I think you have to run 3 characters. You know, that's a lot to manage and it's a big table hog. So I hope you have the space for it. I think that, I guess, side tangent, I think that Cthulhu Death May Die is actually, of all of these CMON games, probably the most soloable and maybe the most tactical. It's the most challenging as well. So that's my recommendation of where I'd go if you're looking for this sort of dungeon crawler and haven't tried that already. That's my personal favorite. As I said, final recommendation, I would go for the core game and the character add-ons. Don't overcommit to a bunch of stuff here. You can get a lot of it at retail. And yeah, you want just the right amount of darkness. So not a massive amount. So yeah, that's where I'm at. You can back the dice if you want. I might. I think they're cool. I'm a fan of blinging stuff out. They're not as cool as the Frost ones, I feel like, in the previous campaign, but I still like them. The terrain, again, that's up to you. I think it might make the game a little more difficult to set up because I don't think the treasure has the icons underneath them. So you might still need the treasure token to figure out, did you get rares or epics or whatever? So I think it might just make it more difficult, but it does look nicer. So there's that. I'll leave that up to you, of course. I'll be passing on it though. So yeah, that's what I have for you. Let me know what you're going to do. I'm interested to hear. Was I wrong about anything? Did I miss anything? Are one of these expansions just like a home run? I'm not sure. Hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, thanks for watching.